Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Craft Parenting Podcast. Podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Joe Ludwig, and with me today is my lovely wife and co-host, Caroline. How's it going, Caroline?
Pretty good. I worked from home today, so I had two awesome little helpers. Lily helped me put an alphabet in the basement, so now we can practice our ABCs. She actually can say most of the alphabet on her own, yes, unprompted. She does not associate them with the pictures of the letters, though, so that's the next step. We'll get there.
We have a guest today with us, Brock Lusch. Brock, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a stay-at-home dad here in the Cincinnati area. I started up the local Cincinnati Dads group 5 years ago, and I don't know, just doing my thing as a parent. And yeah, I too have a craft beer problem, but or a parenting problem, and I love craft beer here in Cincinnati. I guess that's the best way to put it. So
the two go hand in hand.
They so do.
Yes.
Especially now, we went to Fibonacci the other week, and the kids loved it because they have the petting zoo with the goats and the chickens.
I need to make it over to that side. I haven't got to the Fibonacci yet, but
yeah,
I hear good things.
They had a band, and Lily stole the show. She adopted a grandpa. I did not know that you could adopt a grandpa.
Oh, yeah, you can totally adopt a grandpa.
But her headband fell off.
Grandmas,
and so
too.
She just walked up to this random guy and was like, hey, can you put my headband on? And he's like, sure. And she did that like 3 times. And the family's like, do you know her? Because he's there with his entire family. And he's like, nope, no idea who she is. And I'm like,
we have a dad, or we have a grandpa like that we met at our church.
Mm-hmm.
And he's awesome on all sides, because not only did he get to adopt the kids, and the kids love him, and
mm-hmm,
he's always like bringing over cookies and donuts and stuff, but he also speaks to me and my wife in the fashion of he's a Jack Daniels ambassador, and so he brings us bottles of Jack Daniels from time to time.
That
so
would be
he's an awesome grandpa.
Yeah, that would be.
I don't do like hard whiskey, but I feel like if it was free, I would. You know, at least get an appreciation for it. You know.
I don't know. Let's see when that Common Core math starts coming around. How we feel about that.
Yeah, you might need a drink after that.
Yeah.
But we are not in our normal location, recording location. We are recording this episode at HighGrain Brewing in Silverton.
Shout out to Gabby, the best server ever.
Yes. Gabby is a server here. Met her for the first time today, and we promised that we would give her a shout out on the show. So if you are listening to this, HighGrain,
give her a raise.
Yeah, give her a raise. So this is the second time that we've been to HighGrain. We actually came here a few days ago to kind of stake it out
and get into a food coma.
Yeah,
that's food, so easy to do here.
Mm-hmm.
Their food is so good.
Meatloaf sandwich all the time.
Meatloaf sandwich.
Ooh, I'll have to do that today.
Yeah, we might. We have a babysitter, so we might be here a while.
There you go. Hey, take advantage of it.
Oh yeah.
Their food was fantastic. I loved their beer. I prefer draft beer, so this is awesome. But I have had their beer in cans because they do distribute.
Yeah, actually, distributing wise, like just down the road, I go to Root Cellar. Usually is where I pick up a lot of my single cans and stuff like that. So that was actually one of my first introductions to the beer here at HighGrain. So
yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I've had their stout. It was a dark beer. I think they just call it by the style name. So I think it was just called stout.
Honestly, I'd say my favorite beer that they have on their menu, typically year round, is their Hefeweizen. Not a lot of places here in town make a Hefeweizen.
No.
There are more that are picking it up, but it's still a really rare beer to find.
Yeah.
And I feel like they nail it here.
They also have a Schwarzbier.
Oh, yeah.
Which they have the only proper way from here on out to label a Schwarzbier.
Agreed.
Because it's Schwartz.
May the Schwartz
beer
be with you.
And it's called Lone Star.
Yes.
Because of a little movie called Spaceballs. And they have, I don't remember what the name of the ship was. Because it wasn't
Spaceballs 1?
The Millennium Falcon that wasn't the Millennium Falcon but was an RV.
Oh, yeah.
That is on the label, and it is fantastic.
It is, but it isn't on the label.
Little known fact, the scene where they're at the diner, where the little like alien thing pops out of the guy's stomach, when they show the full scene of them flying in, if you look in that and pause it just right, the Millennium Falcon is parked in that parking lot.
Nice.
Yeah, I haven't seen Spaceballs in a very long time, so...
I watched it without you. I don't remember why. I just remember finding it on like Netflix or something. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to watch this again.
I'm kind of a movie nerd, so like I've like to look for little things like that or hear it from other people. And the other thing I heard was that Mel Brooks actually went to Spielberg to try to get some sort of like resemblance of Han Solo, and he said, no way, like you're not doing Han Solo. And he's like, fine. And so that's why Lone Star looks more like Indiana Jones.
I mean, they are two totally different characters that look nothing alike and are not portrayed by the same actors. So,
yeah, but a great movie nonetheless.
Yeah.
So if you are in the area, or if you haven't been here before, or if it's been a while, make sure to stop by and grab a pint at HighGrain Brewing. Also, make sure to check out our blog, craftparentingpodcast.com, because I am on a quest this year to visit 12 new breweries that I haven't been to before. And
have we caught up?
This would be number 8. I haven't.
We did catch up.
Yeah, so I haven't written 8 blogs yet, but this would be number 8. So hopefully I get caught up. It'll be on the blog soon at craftparentingpodcast.com with pictures and just my experience, my thoughts about HighGrain. So we have a great show. Brock, you're going to hang out with us for a bit and talk all about dad life and stay-at-home dad and the Dad Network.
Yeah, the National At-Home Dad Network.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so before we do that, though, we have some drinks in front of us. So let's go around the table and tell everyone what we're drinking. You can go first, Brock,
right,
since you're the guy.
Well, I went up to the bar at first, and I had to try a few different ones. So, like the
As
Schwartz,
you do.
Yeah. So, like I got a little taste of the Schwartz beer, which was delicious. I also did the oatmeal stout, which was also milk stout was also really good. But I ended up landing on the blueberry blackberry sour, and honestly, like I was not a sour fan a few years ago, but I got into it, and this one here, it's got some great notes, like the blueberry and the blackberry, like they balance really well, and it's not harsh on your tongue. Yeah. And so you still get that sour, taste on there that, you tend to enjoy, especially on a hot summer August day.
But oh my God, it's so warm out.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sure if we were outside, that would be very refreshing. I'm sure it's refreshing right now.
We almost set up outside, and I was like, no, don't do it.
No.
Yeah,
they have umbrellas. It would have been bearable, but no, thank you.
A great beer garden out there,
but I will say that the thing that is really just like with sours, some of them can be a little over pucker. You're like,
oh yeah,
I don't know about this, but this one is perfect. Like I really feel like it's just that well balanced that you want in it. So. Yeah, and as far as the heat goes, hopefully, actually, after today, it's supposed to drop down and be really nice. So
we'll see. It's Cincinnati.
I know.
We could still hit like 32-degree temperatures in 3 days. It's possible.
It is, yeah, that's true. I mean, I've been here for about 15 years, or actually almost 20 years. So yeah, I hear you. It does swing a lot in different directions, so you never know.
Yeah.
Caroline, what are you drinking?
So I am currently drinking the Brew Quality, their Pride Wheat Ale. It's 4.4% and fruity, juicy, delicious. And those are 3 words of which I would use to describe this beer. So they hit that.
And I am drinking Lucin, which is one of their pilsners. It is 5% ABV, light, crisp, and herbal. And this one, I believe, a gold medal.
I forgot to Google this.
At the U.S. Open Championship.
I will say that's the one thing that I love to talk about here in Cincinnati is just the amount of breweries that have medaled in different competitions. And still, just like any other Cincinnati thing, whether it be sports or whatnot, like it always never gets its like actual attributes of success. And even to the point of the amount of craft beer that comes out of this city. So, yeah, hopefully more people like see that there's some really high quality beers coming out of this city and give it a little bit more respect than what it tends to get in the craft beer world.
I know every now and then, we see a clickbait article that says top 10 beer cities or top 20 beer cities.
Yeah, it's like Portland, Ashland, Nashville.
Yeah, they list Cleveland and Columbus, but not Cincinnati.
Now,
Almost every time.
There was an article, I think about a year ago, that came out that had Cincinnati really high up, and it was funny because I was like, oh yeah, like I can actually like throw this at some of my buddies that live out in the Washington area and stuff, and so like I sent it to them, and they immediately are like, that must have been written by somebody locally or something like that. I'm like, geez, dude, like, do people say that crap when you get somebody like the Portland, Seattle area? No.
Yeah, I mean, literally a brewery in so Brink won Best Small Brewery of the Year 2 years in a row.
They're the only
now,
brewery to do it.
Third Eye is getting all the awards because that's where Kelly is now.
Okay.
But Brink still gets a bunch of awards.
Yeah, if you go to their tap room, they have medals everywhere.
Yeah.
And like literally, you can find Rheingeist almost anywhere. Like,
you know what I'm finding is actually starting to really spread out is Urban Artifact.
Oh yeah, they're
so, like I have a friend up in Minnesota that gets it up there at his bottle shop all the time, and he's always so excited about it. Like he'll send me pictures. He'll be like, "I got astronaut food," like like or whatever he gets in there. I'm like, "That's pretty cool, dude."
Yeah, I went to
Urban is the I feel like they were the ones who solidified sours.
Oh yeah,
but they don't do beer because they're doing a whole new branding thing where they don't do beer now.
So they're just doing sours now?
Because Midwest Fruit Tart is like barely beer.
Yeah.
So they're like, no, it's its own like thing.
There seems to be a lot of different like rebranding and ownership changes and things like that happening here in Cincinnati recently too. Because you got even Bad Tom Smith recently.
Yeah, they recently got new owners.
Yeah, it was sold to a local person. So not that the former owner was bad or anything. He was from Pittsburgh, but I mean, some people might look down on that, but
I mean, you can still reform yourself. You still have a chance.
Man, I haven't been in Bad Tom Smith in quite a while.
It's been a very hot second since we've been down there.
Yeah. Well, and the location down there, like, it was, they struggled through the pandemic, at the beginning of it for sure, and even like completely shut their doors. So I live down in that neighborhood, so that's why I know about it and everything. But I wondered if they would ever even open their doors up, honestly, because it was like, ooh, you guys are going to close completely down. Like, that's tough.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I did find it. The Lucen Pilsner by HighGrain recently won a gold medal in the German Pilsner category in the U.S. Open Beer Championship.
Yes.
Nice.
So just
I found that on Google too, but the conversation moved, so I ignored it.
It's all good.
All right.
We jump around a bunch.
Yeah, that's okay.
Now get ready for this next one.
So we have little kids. They are
almost 3 and
Lily's
18 months.
3 and Elliot is almost
Mine aren't
18
quite
months.
that little yet, or that little. Mine are 6 and 9, but still.
Yeah. So this next segment, it's going to be a quick segment. This is when we talk, where Caroline specifically talks about what's bugging her in children's TV, like the little TV, like usually we talk about Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
But spoilers, we're not today.
Oh, good. What are we talking about today?
Barney.
Wow, we're going to go back. Okay.
Yeah. So at some point less than 6 months ago, my mom and Joe's mom introduced the kids to Barney.
I heard this
at about the same time.
And I cringed when I heard you tell the story.
Yeah. And I'm like, sweet. Love you guys so much.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Mom.
We're planning Lily's 3rd birthday party. And because Lily is now more vocal and has more of a personality and knows more of what she wants, I was like, hey, Lily, what do you want your 3rd birthday party theme to be? I was like, last year we did 101 Dalmatians. The year before that we did Mickey and Minnie Mouse. We could do like Scooby-Doo or Phineas and Ferb or all these other sorts of things. And then she says Barney.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, that wasn't an option. Are you sure you don't want like princesses or Scooby-Doo? Barney. Okay.
Be like, YouTube's like a time capsule, sweetie, and like, unfortunately, like,
I have to make everything from scratch.
Oh my
Everything's it's going to be purple and green, and somehow I'm going to figure out how to use my mom's Cricut to make banners with my mother's Cricut.
I need a big dinosaur sheet cake that I can just basically use purple icing on.
Yeah. So I ordered a cake from a friend. And I just told her it needed to be a Barney cake. And eventually I might show her pictures. I might not. I'll see what she says.
I don't know. You might want to. Otherwise, you might get a Barney Fife cake instead.
She knows. She's got small kids.
She gets it.
She understands the pain. And so I was like, okay, let me Google Barney cake and we'll just see what we find. And of course, YouTube is a time capsule. You can find everything.
Yep.
So I find I just find like the 1.5-minute clip of an episode where it's Barney's birthday and they're making Barney's birthday cake. And as I was like, oh, well, we'll play this because I'm trying to get Lily to use the bathroom. So we'll just hang out in the bathroom while we watch this video. And the video starts playing and I'm like singing along in my head. And I'm like, I know exactly what this cake looks like. And I know exactly what these kids are going to do about 2 seconds before they do it. And I'm like, oh, hey, I just unlocked a core memory. Wow. Didn't know I could do that. Thanks, YouTube. And now I have that stupid cake stuck in my head.
Oh, jeez.
So maybe that will be the cake that Lily gets for her birthday. I don't know.
Yeah, we watched that episode. When I was trying to get her to nap, it did not work. She's almost 3 and she doesn't nap.
Yeah, so YouTube, can be dangerous and good all at the same time for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We've used it to introduce our kids to some of like the older Saturday cartoons because you can actually put that in like Saturday morning cartoons from
nice.
the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
No joke. We're talking cartoons and the commercials. Somebody,
cool.
Whoever did it, like
it was probably his parents.
I mean, it had to be something where they like had it done on VHS,
Yeah.
and then converted it to like a DVD to be able to put it on, like or whatever. But yeah, it's awesome. Like you get all the old like commercials with cereal and toys and all that, and it's so much fun because like my 9-year-old especially is like, oh, that's so cool. I'm like, yeah, it was really cool. It's not around anymore. type of deal.
Oh, my mom would be able to find it on eBay and buy it for you.
eBay's the other time capsule.
Yeah.
For sure.
My mom comes home with comes to our house with lots of Playmobil toys that end up staying at our house. And I'm like, Mom, our house is going to explode. Oh, it's fine. They all fit in this bin. It's okay.
They don't stay in the bin, Grandma.
No, they don't.
They don't.
So I got to go through the living room again to get rid of a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't say that we were going to start talking about Caillou because that's its own.
That's banned.
That is banned from our house.
That's good because that was banned. Honestly, so actually, I did a really funny thing. So my kids sometimes can get classically conditioned with different little sayings from time to time if you say them over and over again. And my wife has a background in counseling and psychology. And so with him, we would be watching PBS and Caillou would come on and I would be like, nope, we're not watching that kid. That kid's bad news or something like that. I forget what I said exactly. But if I wasn't in the room and it came on and he'd be like, Papa, we need to change the channel. I'm like, why, what's going on? He's like, that kid that kid that just is not good is on. I'm like, oh, okay. Like he had something bad to say about it. I'm like, oh, okay, he's picked that up. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, Caillou, Coco Melon. And I want to say that Barney might have been on the list. But I don't know how far that list actually made it to our parents, other than just a mutual agreement.
Do you guys watch Bluey?
No, but I've heard good things.
So Bluey is like the one cartoon that you can watch with your kids and actually like enjoy it because the content in it is just really good across the board. But my kids, especially my daughter who's 6, she has picked up the Australian accent for no, and it's so weird. Like because when she did it, I was like, what? Like that's so odd. And I went to do something one night and I was like, I don't know where she's picking this up at. And all of a sudden I get a text message from my wife and she's like, I know where that came from. She's like, it's an Australian accent. It's from Bluey. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, a lot of kids were, when they were watching Peppa the Pig.
Peppa the Pig, yeah.
They started having British accents.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just funny though whenever she does it because I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, like I didn't think that would happen, but all right, here we are.
They pick up the strangest things.
They do.
All right, is that everything that's bugging you this week?
I think so.
Okay. Brock, let's start at the beginning. You mentioned that you came to Cincinnati 20 years ago?
Almost, yeah.
So you're not originally from Cincinnati?
Not originally from Cincinnati. No,
Okay.
I grew up in northeastern Indiana in a town called Huntington, Indiana. So just a little bit southwest of Fort Wayne. So about 40,000 people there. It's, farmer's town type of deal. My wife would actually laugh at me saying that because she grew up in a town that was like barely 1,000, I think, or something like that, in the middle of a cornfield in Illinois. So, but no, I'm from Indiana. I moved here back in 2004 to continue finishing up a degree in youth ministry. So, actually went to the defunct now Cincinnati Christian University over in Price Hill.
Okay.
So that's actually where I met my wife too. So
we live up the hill from there.
Okay.
Yeah, we live in Bridgetown.
Yeah, I know that area.
So right by Western Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Western Roll-A-Rama was my wife and I's like first little interlude with each other. So yeah, so we know that area quite well. So yeah, we've been up here. So so since 2004 we've been around. Her and I've been married since 2007, so 15 years.
Oh wow!
Congrats.
Yeah. And we've got 2 little ones. Like I said, we got a 6-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. So yeah, so we're getting into 1st grade and 4th grade this year.
Oh my!
Oh man!
Yeah, but the nice part is that like even though I'm a stay-at-home dad, they go to school, so I do get a little bit of a breather throughout the day. So
yeah, I'm like terrified and looking forward to preschool, because like even though I'm not home with the kids all day, like it's hey, you get a few hours a day where you have other adults in your life telling you that you have to do the same thing that you're ignoring me telling you that you have to do, and you can figure out how to talk to and interact with people your own age. Because even though we go to the park and stuff, our kids are tall, and so like 5-year-olds will run up to Lily and start talking to her and like want to do something with her, or be confused when she tries to take a toy from them without saying anything, and I have to be like, oh, she's only like 2.5 years.
So you have kids who are taller and get confused for their ages. I understand.
So it like we went to we went to Wooden Cask, and a little girl asked if Lily could play with her, and I was like, yes, this is Lily. And she's like, Lily does like, she can mostly say her name, but sometimes it's still hard to understand because we put 3 L's in her name, and L's are still hard. And so this little girl comes up and is like, hey, can you play? And I was like, yes, this is Lily, and she's 2 3/4. And this is like, and this is like Anna, and she's 5. And they're like the same height. And I'm like, I'm sorry, girl. Like, you're just going to have to like either mature really fast or.
I feel like kids, though, they figure it out. Like, I know that my oldest will tend to like gravitate. Well, actually, both kids will just gravitate towards a group of kids. And no matter what the age ranges are, like, they figure it out. Honestly, they figure it out better than most of us adults do. So, I mean, honestly, like they make friends immediately. It's like, adults were like, we're gonna size you up a little bit. So, I've got the kids that are in school there, and everybody always asks. I feel like this is like the question. It's like, oh, what do you do all day then when they're away? You just sitting around watching TV and playing video games? I'm like,
obviously,
there's
no
nothing
problem. Else to do ever
because my wife would just enjoy the fact that laundry is not getting done and dishes are not getting done, and the room or the house just looks a mess and everything else. Like, no, like I'm taking care of the house and mowing the yard and everything else there is to do. So I stay busy, and even this year, like things are different because like our kids actually go to a private school, which cannot, that can be a little expensive from time to time. And so I'm at a point where I'm trying to find like some part-time work just to do stuff, not to mention everything else that I do. So, but just trying to kind of fill that little bit of financial gap and things. So it's always something going on. So,
yeah. Well, because I swear because Joe was raised through Catholic schools in Cincinnati, and he's one of 3 siblings. And I could swear that, like, you started to get a discount on the second kid. Like, it wasn't much of a discount with the second kid, but you got a discount. And so our friends had 3 kids, and they were pregnant with their 4th. And, like, the second one was going to start to go to Catholic school soon. And I was like, oh, so, hey, you got another one going to Catholic school. That means you get a discount, right? And they're like, no, you don't start getting a discount until your 4th kid. And I'm like, oh, our kids are never going to get a discount. No, thank you.
I think you do get a discount if you go from Catholic high school to Catholic college.
Probably.
You probably get some sort of scholarship or something for that, I imagine.
Yeah.
I know at our school, like, there are scholarships that are available that you can apply for. You're like, hey, like, I can't quite make this entire thing work. Can I get some assistance, like, in discounting the actual price of it? So we've gotten that a few years in a row, which has been super helpful as well. But still, I mean, make it work the way you can, especially on one income. So we do the best.
Well, I know at least with the high schools, there are options too where they have like not necessarily like janitorial programs, but if you can get on the short list, you help clean the school once a week or once a month or whatever it is, and then you get a discount on your tuition for doing that.
Yeah.
It's a job, but not really a job.
We have a lot of volunteering that goes on in the school, so I get involved in a lot of that. Like the past couple of years, I've done like over 100 hours of volunteer work at the school.
Which is great.
Which is awesome. No, it's great. I've gotten to know teachers and kids. Like there are teachers who instead, like they don't have to ask certain people for things because they know that I already know where it's at. And a lot
Yeah.
of it can be on like a janitorial maintenance level. They're like, hey, we're out of like rolls of paper towel and toilet paper or something like that. I'm like, all right, cool. Like I know exactly where that stuff's at, and like run down the hall and get it and bring it back. And you know, they're trying to figure out how to like open stuff up, and I'm like, oh, it's just this easy. Push this button and it opens up. It's all good. But
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, it just those kind of things help out a ton with just being able to connect with people.
It's very important to get to know like the teachers at 100 hours of volunteer time. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you get to know them very well.
Well, even as a stay-at-home dad, it's good to get to know them because one of the big hurdles as a stay-at-home parent, if you're the primary caregiver, especially if you're the dad, you're the primary caregiver, it's a big hurdle for schools, doctors, like all that stuff to get over the fact that they're not going to call mom, that they need to call dad, and dad actually has the answers. He's competent and like fully involved with what's going on with the kids.
Yeah.
And honestly, like my wife specifically, like will go to the teachers and be like, you are going to call him. Like, do not call me. Like I'm working. I will be super unhappy with you if you call me. Like, and you will hear, like my mama bear will come out. Like she's non-filtered when she tells like the school that stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember one occasion where the school called or whatever when she was on like a phone call or whatever, and she took it because I wasn't around, but I was able to take the call type of deal.
Yeah.
And she thought that they had already tried to call me. And when she found out that wasn't the case, oh my gosh, like she ripped into him. And from that moment on, like I've never had a problem with them after that.
Yeah. Now I will say there was one instance where I did have to call a mom when dad was right there. So I do volunteer work with Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
And one year, well, a few years, this one specific year, I was helping the most with getting girls picked up after camp was over. And Girl Scout rules are very strict.
Yeah.
You have to have you have to be listed on a piece of paper that gets turned in with the girl before the start of camp. And you have to have your phone number, and the name on the sheet has to match the name on your driver's license. And a dad pulled up, and he had his driver's license, last name matched the kid. He knew every other name that was on that pickup slip. And I was like, I am so very sorry, but I have to call your wife and make sure that you have permission to pick up your daughter. I'm like 95% sure that you do, but I need to go through this motion because if for some reason you don't, it's my butt on the line.
Yeah, it's the world we live in these days. You got to make sure you double check that.
Yeah,
sure.
And he picked up his daughter every day that week, and by like Wednesday, I was like, hey, let me go get your daughter. And he's like, don't you need to see my ID? And I'm like, no, we already went through all the motions. It's fine.
Right, yeah. It's like we've already made the initial check. We're good.
Yeah, I was like, it's still you. I recognize you. I'm terrible with names, but I remember your face, and I remember your daughter, so we're good to go.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
I was like, hey, I'm so sorry because I'm sure you're busy, but I need to make sure.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I would be in the same. I mean, I would treat that the same situation if it was reversed. Honestly, like it just makes sense. Like you want to make sure that the kids that you're in charge of like get to where they need to be. So
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, like it's always interesting, like interacting with different people in that way. But I've found that honestly, like the more that you show up, the more they're like, oh, like you break the mold for what I typically expect for like a dad or a parent like that's around in that situation that I normally wouldn't see or whatever. And it's opened up lots of good conversations, so that's been nice. Running the Cincinnati Dads group here in town actually has been another great way to connect with a lot of people here in town. I don't know if you know Crossroads Church in Oakley or not, but they have that huge indoor play area, and I would go there with my kids, especially my daughter when she was just kind of coming into preschool, and we'd go hang out there, and the moms, for the most part, like I would introduce myself to them, and after about I think the fourth time going there, like they're like, oh yeah, that's that guy that runs the dads group here in town.
Well, that's the thing. You remember them because typically it's just a bunch of moms.
Yeah. Well, I'm usually wearing a shirt that says "Dads don't babysit." It's called parenting, and I brought a sticker for you, Joe, so that you could have from the National At-Home Dad Network. That's a copyrighted or trademarked slogan that we put out years ago, and we've got shirts that have it on it. So usually, like I'll be wearing a shirt around, and I get lots of comments from people from time to time. So
Yeah, that's one of the things that like annoys.
It really grinds her gears.
Yeah, because
when people call it babysitting.
So I'm a female engineer, which is rare in and of itself.
That's awesome.
But because of that, I meet a lot of other like high-powered women who usually are the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, if my husband had a complex where he wanted to be the one making the most money, like we would not be together anymore because I made twice as much money as him, and so it made more sense for him to stay home with kids than me.
Yeah.
It's like I have a trophy husband. And when people say that, like, oh, he's babysitting the kids, and I'm like, no, he's a dad. They're his kids too. He is 50% of the equation.
Yeah.
Like, you need to step up. We had a friend that was telling us a story. It was like it was a friend of a friend, where she had a kid. The kid is like 6 months old at this point, and the father has maybe changed one diaper because, quote, my hands are too big.
I mean, look at my hands.
Your hands are way bigger than mine. So
I've
like,
changed many diapers.
That puts you in an advantage because you have more leverage to like help keep the kid in one spot because they can't do as much of a twist because, hey, look, my hand is there.
That's an interesting crutch. I know that, like, so Kevin Hart a few years back had in an article said that he hadn't changed any of his kids' diapers, and his reasoning was due to the fact that he felt like it was took a special mother's touch to like change the diaper, like that was their time together, whatever. And he got lambasted for that comment for the longest time. He's since like come out of that, and I think part of it, if you watch like from different movies that he's done here recently, like Fatherhood, that was done, and then he's got a new one coming out called Me Time, actually on Netflix as well, where he's a stay-at-home dad, and his wife realizes that like he needs some me time, like he needs to get out and do some of the things that he used to do when he was single or whatever, and so she sort of sends him off on a journey. But I think that sometimes people say things and then they go back and they're like, oh, like maybe I didn't quite mean it that way, or realizing like, wow, like I can't believe that I said that, or that's the deal. And I think that was the case with him because he's different in that fashion. But I feel like a lot of dads sometimes, though, the reality is like, oh, like they're fragile, like I'm, I could break them or something along those lines. That's where I could see maybe like the big hands coming into play. But at the same time, I'm like, all right, dude, like you're good. Like get in there and get it done. Like I remember when my oldest was born, I changed all the diapers all the time, especially in the hospital even. And I remember a nurse actually like pointing it out and being just like, wow, like you're just getting right in there and doing it. And I'm like, yeah, why? What's the big deal? And she's like, dads don't do that here. Like I rarely see a dad like change their their kids' diapers. And I'm like, whoa, okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they see the worst of the worst.
Oh, sure.
Like we legit saw somebody carry into the labor ward, not even mom and baby, but the labor ward, a car seat with the base still attached.
Oh, wow.
Like, yes, I'm going to use this car seat with the base still attached with a very, very new child that does not have to sit in the hospital for at least 24 hours before you're allowed to leave.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how any of this works. Props for trying. But
hopefully that nurse or the group of nurses there was like, yeah, you got to put that in the car before we actually let you walk out of here type of deal.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, because that's wow, that's scary.
Yeah. What is it? There's like a George Carlin quote or it's somebody like that, like an older comedian, where it's like, imagine how dumb the average person is, and then realize that 50% of the population is dumber than that.
Yeah, I think that was George Carlin.
That sounds like a George Carlin thing.
We have new beers. So
we do.
Not to derail.
No.
We're drinking the Schwartz beer, Lone Star, and may the Schwartz be with you.
Yes, it is very tasty. So let's take a step back. Brock, were you always a stay-at-home dad, or what did you do before?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think anybody's asked me that one yet. Yeah, I was not like immediately a stay-at-home dad. Now, I will say this. When I met my wife back in 2004, like we were dating and just sort of like talking about, what life would be like later on type of deal. And we got married like 3 years after we had met. But we were talking about it, and I said, honestly, like, you know, I'm going into youth ministry. Like, I know that job, you know, entails more just like kind of away from different things or whatever. But if we had kids, like, I would probably just kind of be like a stay-at-home dad, honestly. Like, you know, it would work better, because she was looking at going into counseling, so there was no way kids were going anywhere with her.
No.
And so I was like, you know, that's how I would see it going. That way we're raising the kids versus them being in any kind of like childcare program, whatever that is, and spending all the money that, you know, everybody knows that they spend nowadays.
Yeah. And make sure you get on the wait list before your kid is born. Otherwise, you're not making it in.
Yeah. So we discussed it, and but I've worked all kinds of jobs here in the city. Everything from a bike taxi rickshaw driver down on the riverfront for a year or so to logistics trucker here in the area, delivering all kinds of things. And before I became a stay-at-home dad, I was actually working for a financial industry in their 401k department. That's actually where my wife works now, but she's on the personal investment side of things. So she's a manager for them now, and because we made the decision 5 years ago for me to step away from all that to be a stay-at-home dad, like, she's been able to just flourish, like, in so many ways. She's had to take lots of tests to get licensed for different things, and it's like she didn't have to like freak out and worry about like, how are we going to pick up the kids in this or that. It was like, I was able to go do all those things for her, you know, and for our family, so that she didn't have to worry about it. She could just concentrate on, you know, passing these tests and moving our family along further. So yeah, so I've only become a stay-at-home dad in the past 5 years, and honestly, like, when it came time for it to happen, I was like, okay, what's this look like? And I had one friend who we hung out with all the time from church who had been a stay-at-home dad for a few years, and I was like, let's sit down, have some bourbon, smoke a cigar, and tell me what your life is like, kind of deal. And, so I got a really good rundown of what I was going to be getting into, and I realized at that point, like, if I don't figure out a way to connect with other dads and network in some kind of way to where, like, I'm, you know, not just hanging out at the house with kids and driving myself nuts, but we're actually doing things in the city together, like, it's going to be wild. And so that's where, like, I was like, all right, like, I'm just going to start inviting all my friends who are dads into this group called the Cincinnati Dads Group. Pretty just generic name, worked out really well. Yeah. And then I was on Facebook looking around for just stay-at-home dad groups. You know, first I was looking for local ones, and I found some guys, but they were just kind of like, it was sort of, defunct, like they'd kind of aged out or whatever. But I found the National At-Home Dad Network, which was, to me at first, I was like, wow, this is a really cool group. I found out later they're a 501c3. And so I got really involved with them, and then just started meeting people from like all over the country who are stay-at-home dads. And so you learn like all these different experiences and things like that. And it was like, okay, this is cool. Like, I got that going on, plus the local scene of things. And it's just sort of snowballed into this, like, I've gotten to a point where I'm very comfortable being a stay-at-home dad, and then also to talking to other people about it. So any kind of like negative comment that comes at me from people, I'm just like, why do you think that? Like, I don't come at them, like, back at them aggressively with, their snide comments. I'm just like curious, like, where's that come from? Like, what's that all about? And have conversations with them. And usually at the end, they're just like, oh, I never really thought of stay-at-home dad as like a good thing versus this, like, some kind of like lowly bum sitting around not trying to find a job type of deal. So
yeah. What's like you have stay-at-home moms that are helping their husbands flourish. Why can't it work the other way?
Unfortunately, a lot of that's because culture has basically built it up to that's a normal thing. Yeah. It's been that way forever. I mean, you get the 1950s housewife who was on
lots of meds to not try to like go crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, but that's really what it comes down to. But what's really interesting too is that you find little sprinklings of stay-at-home dads in things from back in the day. So, like, I had a buddy recently who's an older gentleman he was a stay-at-home dad back in like the 90s or something like that. He sent me a clip from a movie called The Duel, and it's literally all about like this semi truck that's like chasing down this like car on the highway. It's a really weird 70s movie.
That sounds like a thing that drugs could have influenced.
Oh sure. And but in the show, like, the car driver is listening to the radio, and the whole thing is like a call-in about like a guy who is like, I'm filling out my IRS like tax forms or whatever, and it asks like, who's the head of household, and I'm just kind of confused on what to do because I'm a full-time stay-at-home dad and my wife is the breadwinner, and so like, how do I fill this part out or whatever. It was like, this is like 1971 that they're talking about that. I'm like, that sounds like something that would even be said today for some people. Like, how do I fill this out? So yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting that, you know, you see things like that back further on.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because there are some roles that are traditionally filled by women, and then you always have the occasional woman who's like breaking into a role that is not common. Like, oh, hey, we have a CEO of a company that's a woman. Oh my goodness, it's the 70s. What is going on? This is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the company that my wife works for. I mean, it's an international financial industry. The president of that company is a female. She's like one of the like most like, I don't know what you call that. Like, she's one of the like richest women in the world or whatever.
Yeah.
She's like probably like top 3 or something like that. So, and I love it. Like I said, I've worked for her before, and she's amazing, and she's all about equality. And like that's one of the things where, like, when we found that place, I was like, this is perfect. Like, you can thrive so much more in this because it's held, like, the helm of it is run by a female. Yeah. And it was handed down to her by her dad. Like, they gave it to her, and she's been running it. And so you see where you get, like, these women who are in a position where it's like, this is, like, maybe the first time that they've ever had the opportunity to really just, like, shoot for the stars. So, which is always great for me because I'm like, I never really thought of it that way, but it's like I have a daughter now, and I'm just like, I just want her to be able to like reach as high as she can, and that's becoming more and more available than it ever was before.
Well, and like side note, doing a lot of things with Girl Scouts. We did a STEAM camp where it was science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, and I'm like trying to get to my network to like find people who can come to this camp, and I'm like, sorry, not sorry. I'm asking for women first.
Yeah.
And then, like, if I can't get any women to come, then I'll start taking some dudes. But girls can imagine themselves in any kind of role, but they're more likely to think that they can get that role if they see another woman already in that role.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, I've told you this thing, like, 10 times.
Yes.
At Girl Scout camp, I am Piglet. I am crazy. I am totally off the cuff, child appropriate, and just a wild ball of energy. And one of the girls asked me, they're like, Piglet, what do you do for a job? And I'm like, oh, I'm a manufacturing engineer. I went to school for mechanical engineering. I help fix machines. I help make parts. I help make people's jobs easier. And they're like, you're an engineer? And I'm like, yeah, but you're crazy. It doesn't matter. I do this so I don't kill people because this is my fun. This is my joy. I'm not like this at work, but I can still go do my thing at work and yell at people for not thinking that I know the answer to something. But that's a totally different conversation.
No, I hear you. I mean, well, it's the same. I mean, so talking about just people not thinking that you understand something. I mean, so I'd say probably one of the biggest things is when you go to the doctor's office with your kids. If your spouse is there with you, the doctor typically is going to look at the mom and expect to have them answer everything. And I know for a fact that my wife did this. She only did it once, and I know other dads have been like where the mom just stopped the doctor like mid-sit. It's like, wait a minute, stop. Like, everything you're asking me right now, he needs to answer. He's the one home with him every day. He knows. Like, I go to work. Like, he tells me things, but I don't remember all of them because I've got all this other stuff to deal with. And so it's one of those deals where it's like, even if you write down, like, in your records, like, you know, dad is the primary caregiver. Okay, like, he's going to have all the answers to this. He's going to know why so-and-so has a bruise right here or a scratch right there. So, yeah, I completely understand. Like, it's like, I know. You know, give me some respect here a little bit on this. So,
yeah. And while I do probably like 75% of the conversations with the doctor, Joe knows almost as much as I do about like what's going on. And
yeah, I mean, I feel like there's always like in the situation, it's all about balance and being on the same page. Like I talk to people all the time. They're like, man, like you and your wife like seem to get along really well with this situation. How does that work? It's like we communicate. Like. Yeah, all the time, and we're talking about different things, and filling each other in on what's going on, and it's like she doesn't talk down or look down on me for what I'm doing. She gives me grace when I've had a bad day and I didn't get a chance to vacuum the floor and there's dishes piling up the sink, kind of deal.
Right.
And it's like, if you can't have those things, like, and be able to, be like, oh yeah, like I thought that would get done, but it didn't get done. Okay, no big deal. Like, the world goes on. You'll have time later to do it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you run into folks who are in a breadwinner's position that have way too high of a bar sometimes, and it's like, well, the kids got fed, they're still alive. Like, do I get any kind of points for that? Like,
yeah.
So
because that's the TikTok quote: as a parent, your goal is to keep your child alive from when they wake up to when they fall asleep, and they are actively trying to kill themselves that whole time.
Yep.
And that is true. We have an almost 18-month-old boy, and Lily is like this too. But
Lily's slightly adventurous.
I feel like it's even more crazy with the 18-month-old.
So we brought a small climber into our living room. It has a giant hole in the middle of it.
Yeah,
like
so
as
he
a
went. He was
window.
climbing up. So our house, there's a big window, probably 10 feet, 8 feet long.
It's like 10 feet.
It's a big window.
It's huge.
And there's a windowsill, and there's a sectional that goes against it, and Elliot, our 18-month-old boy, he recently learned how to climb onto the couch, and he, would sit on the windowsill and jump off stuff. So for I think it was Lily's birthday, my mom might have.
It was Christmas.
It was for Christmas. Sorry, I can't keep track.
It's all good, man.
Too many toys.
They purchased like an indoor climbing thing. It's like this big baby.
It's like maybe like three and a half feet off the ground, but like the platform is only like a foot and a half off the ground. Maybe more like, maybe it's like 4 feet total, but like the platform's like 2 feet off the ground.
Yeah, so we brought it upstairs. It has a slide. It's
constructive climbing worked out really good for like a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's like this little hole in the middle. And he recently decided that he was going to climb up and climb through the hole.
And just dive onto the ground.
Yeah. So,
head first.
Yeah, so we've been... and, we have carpet, thank God. But
we almost got the hardwood floors refinished.
So there is hardwood floor under there. So, yeah, he wasn't happy for a little bit.
See, I have nephews that when they were little, they used to run around and jump and just land with their knees. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. Like, you make me hurt so much watching that.
Yeah, I explain it as monkey see, monkey do, but imitate poorly because you do not have the same fine motor skills. So, because it's like, oh, big sister did this thing. I can do the thing too.
Yeah. Yep.
And now we're on the floor crying because we, in fact, could not do the same thing that big sister could do.
I don't think he saw the climbing through the hole from Lily, though.
No,
I think
but
he thought of that. Right,
he cooked that one up on his own. Well, you're talking about, though, like, kids trying to, like, basically, like, off themselves, like, throughout the day or whatever. Mm-hmm. So a guy that I know, James Breakwell, better known on TikTok as the Exploding Unicorn.
Oh.
I don't know if you ever heard him or not. He's a very funny comedy writer. I've interviewed him on a couple podcasts in the past that I run, and he has a book out from a while ago called "How to Save Your Child from Ostrich Attacks, Accidental Time Traveling, and Anything Else That Might Happen on an Average Tuesday."
that tracks.
Yeah, and that book is awesome because there's just like hilarious stories of like one was something along the lines of it was a haunted house and the ghost was like haunting the house, and it was like we just put the kid in the room and we let him duel it out, and the ghost figured out like he didn't want nothing to do with the kid. So, but yeah, there's some great stories in there. So yeah, it just kind of fits with that whole idea of like what kind of things do kids or would they get into, and how would they survive, like a vampire attack or something like that.
Yeah, so we have the plastic, plugs that you plug into the wall or whatever. Without fail, if I'm like plugging in my laptop or something and I forget to plug it in, without fail, they go for that plug.
Kids have a sixth sense for electricity. I swear. I swear, as you get older, you lose your ability to sense electricity. But kids just know. Because as parents are in the process of moving out of their house, and so half of their plug covers are off.
Sure.
And those are the outlets that Elliot will go for. No fail, like, hey, I'm going to poke this with my dinosaur's tail. I'm like, no, let's go back into the living room.
So that was the one thing. so we learned a different technique for that, because like everybody was like, oh, like, you know, baby proof your house. And we had heard someone say like, no, like house proof your baby. And it was like, what does that look like? And basically like what it allows you to do is that you can go anywhere and not feel like you have to like check somebody's house out completely for their plugs.
Yeah.
And, you know, work on, you know, like these are the things that we don't do when we go to these houses. And it takes a lot of work to do, but it was one of those things where it was like, that's how we went about like the kids. And it was so nice to not have to worry about that. Cause like to tell my parents like, oh yeah, you need to get plastic outlets for everything. My dad would be like, yo, right. Sure. That's not happening. But you guys survived fine without them, kind of deal.
Yeah.
So
his parents have tried to pull that a few times with stuff with the kids. And I'm like, some of those things, yes, are fine. Some things, not so much so. Like, no, we do need to be in a rear-facing car seat.
Oh, yeah.
And no, you cannot wear your snowsuit in the car. Yes, I know your children did it, but we have lots of reasons now of why you can't do that anymore. But most of the other stuff we're totally fine with.
So old kind of like toys, like we were talking about at one point, like,
Yeah.
So one that my mom found recently and sent home with me were the rolls that have the little like pops on them. You know, you used to hit them with like a hammer or a rock kind of deal. Or I think you could even put them in like one of those like little like cap gun type deals where the hammer was at. So my mom bought a package of them and was like, here, take these home with you for the kids to play with. And I'm like immediately having a core memory flashback of like smashing my finger with a rock or a hammer, like holding it down. And I'm just like, yeah, these are just going to sit up on the hutch for a while till like maybe I decide to get adventurous and like let them try it.
Yeah. Or I get drunk with my friends and we play with them.
Or
and
that.
The children never see them.
Yeah, that's probably more possible, honestly. Like, hey guys, look what I got.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's stuff like that comes out from time to time. So, but it is very interesting how grandparents want to bring things from days of old like into the now, and you're like, okay, how is this gonna work exactly?
Yeah. It's like trying to find decorations for a Barney themed party.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that.
Right.
So lots of eBay.
So you talked about being a stay-at-home dad. What would you say are some of the benefits of being a stay-at-home dad, and what are some of the more pitfalls?
So like I was saying before, I'd say like the biggest benefit has been the fact of being able to support my wife in her job and seeing how like that has helped her to flourish a lot. She'll even tell like her, you know, her associates and things like that. She's like, you know, if it wasn't for Brock being able to do all these things without me having to worry about it, like I would have a really hard time like concentrating on my job. And so like that's probably the biggest like success out of it, honestly. I think the other things for me though are like there are a lot of dads that are trying to figure out this whole fatherhood thing and being able to connect with other dads in times where you're just like, I just need a dad to talk to right now about what's going on. Like either like I'm losing my crap and I just need to talk to somebody about it, or maybe it's a situation where it's like, has anybody else gone through this kind of thing, and just being able to talk about it. Like that's being able to have the freedom to make time for those kind of situations. Like a lot of people be like, oh, so you're like a dad coach or something. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like I don't get paid to do it or anything like that. Like I do it because like I know that it's something that dads need. Like they don't need to lone wolf it at all. Like that should not be the sentiment for a dad.
Well, and that's like the stereotype of guys is, oh, I have to do everything myself and be the manly man, and I can't ask people questions or ask for help ever because I am a man and I can do this all myself. And there's a point where I'm very fortunate that you have this reasoning of I can take a step back and ask the question or get more information about it and not just be like, well, I know everything right off the bat, so we're fine.
Yeah, so that would be the success. I say like the things that are like harder sometimes to deal with are things like one thing that I've run into a lot, and I've actually become a pretty good big advocate for it, is making sure that there's like changing tables in like men's bathrooms.
Oh yeah.
I've many stories from not just me but other guys of going into a men's bathroom when you're just out to have lunch with your kids and you can't change your kids because there's no changing table. And so either you had the awkward conversation of, hey, can I go use the women's bathroom and would you stand here type, like, you know, that kind of thing, to all right, I'm going to try and change on the floor, or however it's going to be, like, which is gross.
Yeah.
And there's some guys that have really pushed big to make that change, and I've gotten behind that a lot. So, but it's just difficult. Like, you're like, come on, why can't you realize that dads are parents too, and we need the same accessibility to take care of our kids when we're out and about. So, like, guys like Dante Palmer, who's from Florida. He's a former teacher who started up the Squat for Change. I don't know if you've ever seen the Instagram post. He's he's about my age, a black gentleman who literally, like, squatted down in, like, a Home Depot and, like, changed his kid on his lap.
Yeah.
And his older son, like, snapped a picture and, like, threw it up on Instagram, and it went, like, freaking viral. And he started this whole, like, Squat for Change campaign, and it was really awesome. Like, Jessica Alba got involved in it and things like that. Like John Legend and Chrissy Teague got involved in it.
And then P&G got involved, but that was before the pandemic.
That was before the pandemic. Yeah, P&G got involved here in town, and they started basically having Dante, like, reach out to a bunch of us. Like, he reached out to me and was like, hey, like, what places do you know where you've been that don't have a changing table in the men's bathroom? And I'm going to throw one local name out there because Dewey's Pizza over in Oakley was one of those places. I had a very tense conversation with the manager about it, because I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, even Oakley is like a super family-friendly neighborhood, and you don't have this? Like, come on. And so he was I don't know if it ever got in there or not, because I haven't been back in a while, but that's one place where I was like, I hope that they've updated their men's bathroom, because there's plenty of room for it in there. So so that, and then a gentleman up out of Columbus got involved with a company called Pluie, which is actually two ladies. One's an engineer of some kind. I can't remember what exactly, maybe manufacturing, but they designed a self-cleaning changing table.
Oh, nice.
And it's like a UV rays, like, it closes, like 60 seconds, boom, it's clean, next person can use it. And so we started up the Dadvocate hashtag, and started pushing that out. And so they've started putting their stuff in different places. So but like I said, like, it's one of those things where it's like connecting with those people to make that happen is, like, the only way that, like, we've gotten over that hurdle in some ways.
Yeah.
Aside from that, it really just comes down to the annoyance of, like, oh, you're babysitting. Like, other than that, it's fine. Like, I don't have some of the problems that other stay-at-home dads that I know have come into contact with. So probably, like, the worst story that I've ever heard, and I've heard it from this guy multiple times, same thing every time. So in his town, he goes to a park, and the cops show up.
Oh, my goodness.
Because some mom took it upon herself not to figure out, oh, yeah, this dad's here with these two kids that are playing on the playground. No.
But he keeps yelling at because they're trying to do something they're not supposed to do.
Right. But no, he's a creeper, and I don't want him around. And so they call the police, and he has to explain to them for, like, the fourth time that, like, you know me. We've had this conversation before. And it's like, come on, parents.
Yeah.
Come on, moms, grandparents, whatever it is. Like, either step out of your boundaries and ask, or be a little more observant to realize, like,
at the very least, ask.
Right?
Yeah.
You'd think that would be the case, but no, like, for whatever reason, people want to go into complete, like, fight mode on it, and you're just like, why ruin someone's day who's just trying to give their kid the best day they can by going to the park?
Yeah. That's
interesting. You mentioned projects around the house, and I follow you on Facebook. It seemed like in 2020, when the lockdowns were more prevalent, everyone was going to the home improvement store. They were doing stuff around the house.
We redid our backyard. We redid our basement.
Yeah. We were very of course, guilty of that. But you recently set your fence on fire.
I love it. That's a great segue. Oh my God. Yeah. So when the pandemic hit, we redid our fence, and so it's a horizontal fence. It's really awesome, very neat, like Asian style. And we had people who were like, "Oh, you're gonna stain it." We're like, "Yeah, we're gonna figure out some way to stain it." And then we decided, we came across I think we were watching like Tiny House or something like that. Like, we're really big in the Tiny House Nation type stuff. But they were talking about how you could lightly toast the wood and give it this really cool color and make the grains come out and everything. And it actually, it waterproofs it when you do that. Like, you don't have to stain, you don't have to actually put any kind of clear coat on it or nothing. And it's good to go. And I was like, all right. So I did a bunch of research on it. Found out literally all I needed was like a propane, like grill propane tank, and a specific type of blowtorch type of deal that just hooks up to it. And so I got a hold of a few people. One guy was like, oh yeah, I have one of those. I use it to like burn up my weeds and, you know, and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, I got propane tanks, no big deal. Hook it up, start going at it. Yeah, it's all trial and error. Yes, there are some spots that are a little bit darker than others, but it actually came out really nicely. My wife was happy with it.
I saw the pictures.
Yeah, there's some video too of me, like, actually you can kind of see like how it lightly like changes or whatever. When you hit a spot that's got like a big vein of sap in it from you know, a pine tree type of deal, whew, those do light up. They can change color. They can be white or orange or red, and then on top of it, like if it's a thick enough vein, it will stay on fire. And I had that happen a couple of times.
Oh, no.
So I always had a hose nearby me because I was just like, if it does happen to like actually flame on, like I want to make sure I can put it out. So, but yeah, it took about 2.5 days to do the whole fence area, and
because that is a thing that you can do while the children are at school and still be productive at the house.
This was during summer.
But this was during the summer though, so they were actually. So she was in the office working, and the kids were hanging out watching movies and just chilling out and stuff like that. So yeah.
See, I would be like, here, 6-year-old, you hold the water, and 9-year-old hold the flames.
We did that.
Fine.
So the first day I did it, the kids were actually swimming in our above ground pool that we have. And they're like, it's so funny. Like, they're just like natural swimmers, honestly, which is great. So they're swimming, and I'm just sort of like testing things out, no big deal. And then I did the part like around the pool area. So like when they weren't there, like I was like, go in and watch a movie and did that. And then on the last day, my son like really wanted to be involved in it. It was like a Saturday where we were all out there. And so I had him hold the hose. I was like, you're going to be the fireman for the time here. It's like, here the hose. I was like, anytime we get into a situation where it's like continually burning or whatever, like give it a good little spray or whatever. And so he was all about that for getting to do that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it was a fun project. We had a good time with it. So it turned out
It looks beautiful.
Thanks.
We'll have to get a wood fence at our next house.
Our next house.
As a Girl Scout, I have my Playing with Fire 101 and 102 certifications.
Yeah.
So it's totally fine.
It's totally fine.
I enlisted in the Navy back in 2008. And so that's all they teach you, like when you're getting ready to go in and when you're in, is fire. You know, you're basically going through fireman school.
Well, because if you get a fire on a boat in the middle of the ocean...
Oh. Yeah.
Like, that can go really bad really fast.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, one of the worst one was the one that, the boat that John McCain was on, because there was a bomb that actually fell and exploded on the deck. And
oh, wow.
When it happened, and this is a training video that they actually show you in boot camp. And so, like, you want to get, like, you know, how, like, that shock and awe. Like, this is the video where you're like, what did I just sign up for? Because what happens is, like, this bomb drops, and, you know, they're magnesium bomb type deal. So it's just like all of a sudden, like, it goes off, fire everywhere. People were, of course, like, you know, not really ready for it. So you had sailors coming up the stairs without any shirts on. They had their jeans on or whatever, like whatever it was. And the worst part about it was that you had guys using the foam hoses and guys using the water hoses at the same time and canceling each other out.
Yeah.
And there were a couple other explosions that took place. And in the end, what they ended up having to do to stop the whole thing was literally push these airplanes off the deck into the ocean and just let them basically continue to burn.
Oh, my God. Yeah, because magnesium and water are a no-no.
Yeah. But it was one of the thing with it was that it's one of the worst naval fires in the history of the Navy because it killed, like, quite a few of the crew in the process because they were burned in the situation. So, yeah, that's why I say, like, I know a lot about fire stuff too. Actually, speaking of fences and fire, so when the pandemic hit, you know, there was one night where it was really nice in the summer. We had our windows open. It was just a cool night, and all of a sudden, like, I start hear someone yelling, like, fire, fire, and I'm like, what is going on? And I look out my window by my bed, and 2 houses over from me, there was a fire that had broke out in the front part of my neighbor's porch.
Oh, my goodness.
And I literally, like, jump out of bed, and my wife's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to go get the garden hose because it's attached to ours. And I was like, I know there's 2 links there. It'll make it across our neighbor's fence. So I jump my neighbor's fence, run across his yard, and I immediately start putting the fire out. My wife is calling 911 at the time. And I had most of the fire actually put out by the time that the fire department showed up.
That's good though.
So until like when they did show up too, my wife was like watching from behind. She's like, Brock, she's like, the gable's still on fire. And sure enough, like the gable had caught. And you couldn't see it. And so like the firemen run in with their axes and just start pulling the ceiling down in the guy's living room and start just like blasting it. But that's as far as the fire got. And it was all due to an old van couch that had like gotten some of the like sparks and embers from the fire that was in this little fire pit in their front yard.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So fire safety, make sure that you don't have very flammable things within like spark distance of your fire, and your PSA to always wear clothes to bed, because you never know when you'll be running through your neighbor's yard to put out a house fire.
Very true.
He didn't say he had clothes on.
I'm going to imagine that he was
I
wearing
did, trust
clothes
me.
for the sake of the story at the minimum.
So different things like that have come about. So it's nice, like, you know, that I went through a portion of naval boot camp. I actually didn't make it all the way through because they found a medical condition with me, so I ended up getting sent home beforehand, but still, you know, have all the stamp of you're a veteran, that kind of thing, but it's just an awkward story.
Do you consider yourself a pretty handy person, or
YouTube is great for being handy, honestly. It's a whole lot of fake it till you make it type situation on all aspects. I mean, I would say anything from, like, I'll work on my car. I've worked on my friends' cars before and stuff. And a lot of times it's like, I'll have done it on my car before I do it on their car type of deal. So like, for instance, like did my own brakes one time. And then I had a friend who like saw that I posted that I did my own brakes. I was like, hey, would you do my brakes? And I'm like, no problem. So it was like, it wasn't that hard, honestly. So I did that. With getting into podcasting, like, I don't have a background in that. Like, you know, that's not my thing. I used to be on a radio station for a while when I was in high school, because our high school had a radio station at it.
Cool.
And so that was sort of like where my love getting behind the mic kind of came into play. But it's something that was like so many years down the road. It was like, I don't remember how everything kind of worked. And with podcasting, it's even different than radio. And so I had to teach myself and connect with other people to make that happen. So yeah, it's a lot of YouTube, but I do consider myself pretty handy. Like, I can, you know, figure out how to do whatever needs to get done at the house. And there's only on a few occasions where I was like, all right, like, this is above my pay grade. It's time to call in somebody. We had a plumbing issue in our bathroom, and I tried to like get this clog out, and I could not for the life of me like figure out what was going on. Like, I had snaked it, everything. Like, I'm like, this thing's not going down. Yeah. And we called a guy in, a company in to come do it, and the guy was like, oh my gosh. He's like, this is a bad clog, man. like he got it out and everything, but I was just like, oh, that explains why I couldn't do it or whatever. But basically it's like, you know, with sinks, when the piping like it connects with the toilet, it's supposed to go down. He said it was clogged going up the pipe that goes up. I was like, yeah, that would explain why I couldn't get it out.
Yeah, that would be problematic.
Yeah, but I'm like, I'm glad I paid a professional to do that, because that just sounds real bad.
Yeah, so PSA, even if they say that they're flushable, do not flush any kind of wipes down your toilet.
Not anymore.
His dad was trying to fix a clog at his grandparents' house, and it was not going well. And so eventually he sends us a photo of a big tarp and a cut section of pipe and just a pile of gross. And is like, hey, you guys, don't flush flushable wipes. And I'm like, well, one, I could have told you that. And two, like, this was way past the point of I would have called someone to take care of this. But that is not his father. His father is like, why did you pay someone to do that? Like, no, I will help you do that. I'm like, I want you to spend time with your grandkids.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a point, like you said, of no return where we do call people.
Oh, sure.
Well,
like, I guess talking about cars, like the other thing I'm starting to get into is like I'm actually learning some things about motorcycles. I don't know if you saw, like I posted recently that I'm working on a 76 Harley dirt bike.
Oh, fun.
That my father-in-law gave me back when my youngest was born, and I finally found a guy who actually like knows how to work on those and just wants to like hang out and work on it type of deal, where it's not going to cost me a bunch of money. I
bring you some beers, you teach me some things while we do this together.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a lot of that, and just friendship too. Like, that's the other part of it. Like, his kids go to my school. That's how we met, was actually by helping out with the t-ball team.
Oh, nice.
And he was like, yeah, he's like, I work on 2-stroke engines. And I'm like, oh, sweet, like, check this out. And he was like, dude, where's that at? And so we ended up bringing it to his house, tore it all down. We've spray painted it, like really nice paint job on it and everything, and just kind of cleaned it up and everything and put it back together. And so I'm like learning, like, you know, how does this work for like rebuilding a carburetor and, you know, hooking up all the different electric lines and, you know, getting the engine going and all that kind of stuff. So just basically learning how to like restore these really fun motorcycles that people tend to like turn into cafe racers and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the dads group before we wrap this up. So you, as you mentioned before, you started the Cincinnati Dads Group, and that was how long ago?
That was about 5 years ago. Yeah.
Why do you think there wasn't a Cincinnati chapter? Because it is a chapter, right?
It is a chapter, yeah. So it's a part of a bigger national group called City Dads.
Yeah, so why do you think one didn't already exist in a city like Cincinnati?
I can tell you exactly why it didn't exist, because this was the argument I had with my friends Matt and Lance from City Dads. I love you guys. But we went round on this. So they were like, hey, like, you know, there's Indianapolis has a dads group and Columbus has a dads group. And these are bigger cities than Cincinnati, right? Like, so
They're about the same.
They're like similar. I don't know. It just depends. But they're like, you know, how about like just getting connected with one of those? And I'm like, fellas, like it's 90 minutes to either one of those places. I go, would you drive 90 minutes to get to another dad like that? And they're just like, yeah,
And
good
what's
point.
in between where you could possibly meet to say like, hey, let's meet in the middle,
Right. But,
other than a cornfield
well,
or another cornfield?
so for the Columbus portion of it, sometimes I'll meet the guys in Dayton and we'll do stuff there, like the Air Force Museum and stuff like that. But yeah, so that was sort of the thing. Like that was the only reason. The other part of it was that there really wasn't anybody here in Cincinnati who was striving to do that.
Mm-hmm.
There really wasn't. Now there are some guys here out of Cincinnati who have started up some different dad brands and things like that, and done some stuff. Like I don't know if you've heard of the brand The Dad. If you've
I think
seen
I
that
have.
before, that was started by Joel Willis here in town, and he no longer runs it. Like he's passed it off or whatever to some other people, guys who are like, I think they own like Scary Mommy or something like that as well, which is a pretty well-known blog. And
Yeah.
things.
Okay, yeah.
But like he's one of the ones that like even he wasn't really looking to start up a dad's group so much. He was just looking for a way to just sort of like entertain online, and that was it. Whereas I was like, I want to connect with other dads and figure out a way to give them a resource and a place to actually like feel like they can have somebody to talk to that's in the same like lifestyle, life's place that they are, that kind of thing. So that's where how it all kind of came about. And that's, you know, and I didn't even know about City Dads until I got involved with the National At Home Dad Network, because one of the organizers for a different city saw what I was doing, because I was in there going like, who in here is from Cincinnati? You know, and I had a few guys who were like, yeah, that's cool. And then this guy from Charlotte was like, you need to talk to these guys from City Dads. And that's how everything kind of happened in that. Yeah. But yeah, so I started it up, and it was funny because, like I said, I started up just with guys I knew, right?
Yeah.
Well, then with asking the guys from the National At Home Dad Network that didn't know, I didn't know, then they come in, they start talking to some of their dads. And at first, too, this is the other part. It got really confusing because I'm a stay-at-home dad. So they think, and anybody else I talked to in the beginning thought that, oh, it's a stay-at-home dads group. And I'm like, no, it's a dads group run by a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
And I kept having to like reiterate that all the time.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, you don't really even need to like introduce me as a stay-at-home dad. Just introduce me as a dad.
Do you have a child that you are the father of where you know their birth date?
Yes.
Okay. You qualify.
Exactly. So that's kind of how all that played out, and it just sort of tumbled. Like get guys that were like just inviting other people, and there's a vetting process. Like I actually have questions. Like on Facebook, there are like 3 questions that you have to ask, and then I usually like look through your profile and see, you know, hey, like, are you actually a dad? Like, what's going on? Sometimes you get the like really weird requests from people, and you're just like, nah, I don't know. Like, you're from like Zimbabwe, and there's something like you had a lot of that going on from like way overseas type stuff. I dealt with that for a while.
Yeah. Most Facebook groups have some kind of vetting question, even if the question is, are you a bot? Yes or no? There we go.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that played out. And two, like, so Facebook got really going with conversations. Guys were sharing stories, talking about different things, and it was awesome. And then I have a meetup page that's run through City Dads where if you're like, I'm not on any of the social media stuff, but I don't mind getting an email when you guys plan an event or whatever. Worked out fine. Like the communication is not there at all, except for it's one-sided. It's just me putting things out and then like waiting to see if anybody's going to RSVP, which is super frustrating. Actually, the first dad's night out that I ever hosted, I hosted it at Bad Tom Smith. I had 6 guys who were like, yeah, I'll be there. Nobody showed up.
Oh, no.
That's always the thing.
Yeah, so it was just me sitting around drinking beer.
There are worse places that you could be when nobody else shows up.
Well, that's the thing.
It's still like,
yeah, if I'm running a dad's night out, I'm going someplace that I want to go. Where if I get stood up like that, at least I'm gonna have a good time myself while I'm sitting there by myself. But that's the only time that's ever happened. So that's the nice part about it. But
yeah, and that's how we met. Actually, we went to Higher Gravity in Summit Park.
Okay, yeah,
and that was my first dad nights out. It was fun.
There was a lot of guys at that one.
There was, yeah.
That was a huge outing.
First time I've ever been to Higher Gravity, Summit Park. Caroline hasn't been to either Higher Gravity location.
I have not.
She gets crap from some of the other podcasts that we listen to.
Yeah.
Specifically Marco?
Yeah. But why do you think it's so important for any kind of dad, including a stay-at-home dad, to have a specific night out?
I honestly, like, if you think about it, like, most times somebody's getting a chance to like get out in the relationship. Like, hey, like, we're gonna go out. I'm gonna go out with the girlfriends or whatever like that. And so it needs to be balanced. Like that way, dad is also getting the opportunity to go out there. But the reason that I think it's most important is because, especially as you get older, sometimes like it becomes more difficult to maybe meet and connect with another dad.
Right.
And a lot of times, like, if your kids are in school, you're going to be around other parents, and it's like that's your commonality. Maybe you might go do something with them, but I feel like that
maybe like outside a t-ball game or a baseball game.
Right. If your kid and their kid are like doing stuff together, like there's a higher possibility, of course, that like, oh yeah, like we'll do a cookout together or something along those lines. But the nice part about the group itself is that it's kind of one of these deals where it's like, all right, like I don't mind meeting somebody new and getting to check that out because there's going to be multiple people there. It's like a group situation, and everybody's coming there for the same reason. So like, when you came up to Higher Gravity, there was like 12 guys there.
That was a lot,
and everybody is just like sitting around, having a drink, talking. A new guy comes in, you'd be like, hey, are you guys the dad's group? Like, no, we're just a bunch of dudes the same. Yeah, we're the dad's group type of deal. Like, even wearing a Cincinnati Dad shirt, and still people were asking that question, which I thought was hysterical. But, so they, people come up and they start talking, and it's just, you're getting brought into it. And it's this whole idea of like, that's the kind of way in, high school and college that you would see people do that. You walk up and just start meeting people. And I feel very much that doesn't have to change, honestly. Like, if you're willing to step out there and introduce yourself, like, you can, if the group is openly like accepting to like have you come in, it's going to make that all flow so much better. And that's what I've really strived to build over the years. Yeah.
And I really have to get out to one of those again because it was a lot of fun, even though I didn't really say a whole lot. I was just more listening. That's kind of I know I have a podcast, but I'm very introverted.
You're fine.
But at least at first. And, the podcast is me getting out of my shell, and me going to that is getting out of my shell. So, yeah, I feel like it is important to meet other dads of all ages, of all experiences.
Yeah, like, well, you're talking about like just sitting there and like listening or whatever, and there's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with that, honestly, because you're listening in, you're learning stuff or whatever, and you're just trying to feel the group out, which is totally fine. I actually started up a virtual like hangout like that twice a week on Zoom for stay-at-home dads through the National At-Home Dad Network. Now, any dad can come on it. It's fine. I've invited all kinds of different dads. Some of the guys here in town will jump on from time to time. Some guys are just so zoomed out, they're like, no thanks, I'm done. Like, I don't need that anymore. But for a lot of us, like, this is our only opportunity to connect with some other dads, depending on where you're at. And so on like Monday and Thursday nights, like, I'll have anywhere from like 6 to 12 guys from all over the country talking, drinking, hanging out, just whatever. And what's great about it is that my West Coast guys jump on at like 10 o'clock Eastern, and it's only 7, 8 o'clock at their place.
Yeah.
So they're running it till like midnight their time. So I'm always getting people like, well, how late does it go? I'm like, it goes till about 3 a.m. Eastern time. So you really, if you want to meet people and hang out, like there you have no like explanation. You have no reason not to if you got the time type of deal. So
Yeah.
And we get guys though that come on and they literally sit there. They may never come on screen, or that we can usually coax them to come up on screen. We're like, come on screen so we can at least see who you are. You don't have to talk. Like, if you feel like you don't have anything to add, that's totally fine. If you just want to listen to us jaw back and forth, that's totally fine. No big deal. And we'll get guys that are like that maybe like the first couple of times or whatever. But after a while, they start realizing like, oh, I've got something in common with them, or oh, I can share something like that. And it just opens up this door for them to feel more comfortable to have that friendship and be able to talk better.
Yeah. You should do that on Thursday.
Jump on.
Monday nights are reserved for the gnome.
Yes.
Oh.
Do you know the gnarly gnome?
I know him. I listened to his Cincy Brewcast. Cincy Brewcast, is that right?
Yeah.
And I like his stuff. I've been listening to it for a while. He's one of those guys that I would love to get to come out to a dad's night out as well.
Yeah.
He's hard to book.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to do the same thing like I'm doing here. Like I'd love to get on his show and just do a segment on his show as well, because I love drinking craft beer wherever. So
yeah. So on Monday nights he hosts the Weekly Pint, which is a show that's not a show, where it's basically just like him talking on video on Facebook and YouTube Live, and then the comment section is just full of people making jokes.
Okay.
And like interacting with him and like keeping the conversation going.
Yeah.
And he said on his most recent version, where you were busy sleeping with Lily as you were putting her to bed. I was too busy hanging out with the gnome to wake you up. But he said that if you think that you are any sort of friend with him and you can play an instrument, he is more than welcome to like. First, he'll vet you out a bit if he doesn't actually like kind of know who you are, but to like go hang out at his house.
An instrument.
So I can play
he can jam out with somebody while drinking beer.
So I can play the kazoo, I guess. Is that what?
I don't know.
What does he play?
He plays lots of things. He's the one that did all his own intro music, I think. He has a whole like band in his basement.
Oh wow. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that about him.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm learning so much on my own podcast.
I unfortunately don't have any musical ability, so that would not probably work too well in my advantage, but that's okay.
I can play the violin.
There you go.
But I haven't picked it up in a very long time, so I don't know exactly how that would go.
I can play the armpit. I don't know.
He would laugh at my
but that's a dad
guitar
thing.
playing ability. One more question, because you gave me the sticker, and we kind of talked about it. You're wearing a shirt.
This is the convention shirt from last year, which is based off of the Cincinnati Reds jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was, and it said
Yep.
Dad. I thought it was really cool. So tell us about the whole Dads Don't Babysit thing, and it's called parenting.
Yeah,
you have a hashtag. You have a shirt, obviously. So
yeah, well, so the shirt is connected with an annual convention called Home Dad Con. It's been happening for over 25 years now. Actually, my shirt on the back says number 25. Like It's got that sort of jersey number on it. But it started in Chicago back in the day. They did like 10 years there, where a psychology professor was inviting stay-at-home dads to just talk with them and kind of do a study on stay-at-home dads. And
Nice.
From there, it jumped to let's go to other cities so that other dads can get the opportunity to be involved in this. And so it's bounced all over the country. We were in Cincinnati last year, which of course was supposed to happen the year prior to that, but thank you pandemic, that kind of all got jacked up. But
What? There was the pandemic?
but the thing with that is you're talking about are you handy at stuff and what do you learn? I learned how to basically build a online convention in that time, because we ran a one-day online convention through that so that we could continue on with everything.
Oh, wow.
And then through that, I continued to then also plan the convention here, and I've taken that to where now I've got me and my team are planning the next convention, which is happening in September out in Phoenix. So it's one of those deals where it's just it goes all over to different places, and it's all really just depends on who can hit our budget lines for being able to stay there and stuff. And there's about 150 guys that show up. Typically, we get speakers. We're there for 3 days. It's Thursday night, and then Friday and Saturday are program days. Out of that, years ago, back in 2016, that sounds like years ago, but back in 2015, 16, right around in there, they had printed up a Dads Don't Babysit t-shirt. And it's that logo that you see there. The biggest key to that logo is the O with the like the red O with the slash in it. That's something that had never been produced prior to. There had been people that had put out like Dads Don't Babysit or whatever, but with that specific thing, that allowed us to actually trademark that. And so then it allowed us to also go after lots of people on Etsy and whatnot, be like, you can't have that anymore. And some people are just belligerent about it. Like, they'll actually keep our, like, the National At-Home Dad logo in there as well and try to pass it off as their own design.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of stores on Etsy that literally take someone else's design verbatim and put it on other merchandise.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, the only place that it's safe to buy stuff that's not reproduced like that typically is Amazon.
Yeah.
And we've had people before that have had that with the logo on it, but the nice part is, like, we just send Amazon the trademark thing and they immediately, like, tell the people to take it down, or they take it down themselves. So but yeah, so that kicked off, and what really sent it off is that at the convention that it happened at, there was a gentleman that came over from England to the convention, and he wore the shirt. His wife took a picture of it and posted it on Instagram, and it went viral, like insanely viral. I think that, like, they sold like I think it was like 16,000 shirts or something crazy like that. Like, after it was nuts. But it really kind of put things, like, on the map as far as, like, oh, like, this is the organization that is connected with that. But that's where that all got started at. And so, yeah, we've got T-shirts and stickers and things that, you know, we give out, like, from time to time, or you can buy them. Like this shirt here, this is like one of the first years that we actually did the Dads Don't Babysit on, like, a convention shirt in a while. So yeah, I love it because, honestly, like, it does get the message out of, like, dads are parents too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also gets a weird effect on some people if they don't read it quickly, or if they read it too quickly and they say it's like dads, like, they for whatever reason miss the NT and they think it's like dads do babysit or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait a minute, what? It was a weird reaction. Like, read the whole shirt. And they're like, oh, okay, never mind. I'm good. I'll calm down now. But yeah, so it's a fun shirt to wear, especially when you go, like, to a convention. A lot of times you'll see guys, like, wearing them. It's really easy to pick somebody out in an airport. You're like, okay, like,
yeah.
But it's always fun when you sit down on an airplane or whatever and you get somebody, you're like, oh, that's a really interesting shirt. And, like, if you're somebody that wants to have that conversation, it opens up the door to be able to, like, talk about just, like, you know, being an advocate for fatherhood and that kind of thing. So
yeah.
But the convention itself is just a great place to, like, hone in on, like, being a father, and you learn all kinds of stuff. Like, this year we have a guy coming in who he does fingernails. He's amazing at doing fingernails.
Oh,
like,
man.
painting fingernails. And so he's going to actually teach us his techniques so that we can then come back and do those for our kids.
Lily says that you need to attend this convention.
Lily is not allowed to get her fingernails painted because she sucks on them.
Yeah.
I
You
know.
do toenails, you'll be okay.
We did toenails. So
We
my mom
just
did her
did
toenails on Monday. I guess that was last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wants to get her fingers done. She says she wants her fingers to be purple. And I said, no, you can't get your fingers done until you stop sucking your fingers.
Yeah.
Our main focus right now is potty training. Then we'll let preschool or us sort out finger sucking once potty training is solidified.
But yeah, but the convention has all kinds of different things, like class in different, like, sessions, breakout sessions. So, like, you know, we've broke out, like, a toddler, a school-age teenager, and, like, something, I forget, there's something else, like these different, like, you know, age brackets for, like, all right, I can go learn about this. Or, you know, we've got, like, some stuff that's more on hobby sides. Like, one guy's like, we're going to do a photo walk, and I'm going to teach you how to basically, like, either one, like, adjust and edit your lighting just right for your phone, or if you have a DSLR camera, like, I'll teach you how to do all the different steps for all of those things.
Nice.
You know, we have mainline speakers who are coming in. That, like, one lady, she's actually been in the convention before. She's bringing a book that talks about having your first cell phone and the etiquette that comes with it, and because her kids are in that age where they just got their first cell phones, and she wrote this book about, like, you know, teaching her kids, like, what that looks like. So you have like just a plethora of guys. And then our closing guys are actually from the Dad Ass podcast out of Columbus. And their whole thing is cocktails and parenthood.
Yeah.
So
I could also get behind that.
yeah, it's a great show. I love hanging out with those guys. Matt and Sean are awesome. I've been involved with them for the past few months with things, but they're coming out to do sort of like the closing, which is great because like we try to make the closing lighthearted and fun, and the guys are going to definitely bring it with the things that they like to share. And I mean, why wouldn't you want to end a convention with a cocktail?
There are zero reasons not to.
Right.
Other than recovering alcohol.
Yeah.
Recovering alcoholic. That's the only exception that you get.
And that's the thing. Like, we do have dads that are in that situation, too. And we do a lot to support dads who are sober and going through sobriety and different things like that. So it kind of hits different realms. We actually have a dad who is a part of Athletic Brewing. And
oh, nice.
He's an ambassador for them, and he's on our board. And so, like, the past 2 years, like, he's gotten them to actually like send us cases of non-alcoholic beer as well for the guys to have.
I would not be upset about that.
No, it's good stuff. So nothing like having some NA craft beer as well there. And so yeah, we try to cater to all those different things, and it's just a fun weekend. And if you're like, this year is kind of passed for like the scholarship side of it, but we do have a scholarship that we both raise money for and also give out to dads who are like, I can't afford like a ticket or whatever it is, and we have an application that you fill out, and we have a committee that goes through those and picks guys to get them to the convention, tries to help them out the best they can.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's a lot of, I've really enjoyed being a part of the organization. Like I said, I was on the board for 3 years, stepped off for 10 months, and got asked to be back on for another year. So I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess.
So I guess one last question before we... I know I said that before.
It's all good.
But you mentioned, drinking and some of the, not everyone likes drinking and stuff like that. But what other activities do you do in town, locally, in Cincinnati, besides like going to Higher Gravity or, a craft brewery?
So last year, me and some dads started meeting in the mornings and doing like a 16-mile bike ride, which is a lot of fun on the Loveland Trail. 16
miles?
Yeah.
I mean, on a bike, that's not so bad.
It's not as bad as you think. And we're not like, pedal to the metal.
Like with the kids? Like you?
It could be with them or without them. Okay. It just depends on what you want to do. These guys, their kids were all in school, so we would just go. It was just us. But yeah, so I mean, it's 8 up, 8 down. Not that big a deal. Like it's basically like where we start at up in Loveland is over by the Riverside Park or whatever.
Okay.
And we would go down to like Milford and back, or go up to Cartridge and back.
Okay.
So because those are about 8 miles, so it was a nice little ride. And like I said, we're not sprinting. I jokingly like I'm more of the cyclist than they are, and so a lot of times like we're just having a good time. But every once in a while they'll be like, "Hey Brock, let's see how fast you can go." And I like fly up about a mile and come back, and they're like, "Wow, that was quick," just being stupid or whatever. But so I do that. We go canoeing. My family goes canoeing on the Little Miami. We usually put in at Milford and go down to Bass Island. So that's a lot of fun. I try to run when I can. And then we do a lot of disc golf from time to time, which is a good, just a nice way to get out. So we try to stay pretty active, honestly. We go to Reds games, gone to some hockey games.
Did you guys go to FCC?
We did, yeah. We got to go to FC Cincinnati game. I actually got connected with them a little bit through the convention, and because we had brought a group there and stuff, and so it's kind of nice to be able to call up a sales guy and be like, "Hey, like, give me some tickets for a game or whatever," and get a go to that. So yeah, and that's their thing. Like, I'm trying to like get some dads together to go to an FC Cincinnati game at some point. So, but to get a group rate, you got to have at least 15 to do that. So
you should do that.
Joe
I'm going to volunteer you for all of the things.
Apparently, Joe and I just need to hang out more, is what it sounds like.
Well, I mean, it's a little tough with 2 kids and stuff, but
hey, I got 2, man. You can do it.
2 little kids, but you have to pick your battles and stuff.
I hear you.
But
yeah, so I stay pretty active in town, honestly, and it's one of those deals where it's like, a lot of people you feel are like, oh, like I can't cross the bridge, I can't cross the river to go someplace. I'm like, why? Like, let's go over to Northern Kentucky and do this, or why don't you come over to Cincinnati and do that, or whatever. It's like, I'll go all the way over to the west side to go to the really cool park that's over there off of what is that?
West Fork Park?
Yeah, West Fork
Oh,
Park.
that's a good
cool
one.
park.
Yeah, like
Yeah, we
I
got
have
that.
no problem driving all the way over there because that's an awesome park. You know,
Yeah.
it's like there's some really cool stuff in this city to go check out. And it's like if you're a stay-at-home dad who's like, I'm just trying to figure out something to do. It's like, really, the excuse should be like not that. Like there's tons of stuff to do.
Oh, there's plenty of stuff to do in the city.
Yeah.
We can hit like 15 different places within a 15 to 20 minute drive of our house.
Yeah. Yeah. And this city's beautiful for just getting out, like going hiking and everything else. I guess the other thing that we like to go do is go hiking. And
Yeah.
there's so many cool places to go hiking around here. And most people are like, oh, it's the city. It's like, yeah, but there's a lot of green around here too.
Oh my God.
We
yeah.
have the biggest park inside city limits in the country. That's Mount Airy Forest.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yep.
That's cool.
It's like 1,800 acres.
It's massive, yeah.
Yes. Maybe don't go after dark. I mean, really don't go after dark.
The
Yeah.
only thing I know
But-
about that park is that they actually have like a sharpshooter archery like culling program actually.
Oh, do they?
And the Parks Department actually in the city has a lot of places like that. So like you take a proficiency test, and then you get to basically lottery draw for a zone to go hunt in.
Oh, yeah.
And
They've
it's really cool.
Because we would get annoyed come November because all of our usual hiking trails we can't hike on
Closed
anymore
down, yeah.
because it's hunting season.
Guys like me are out there in a tree stand or something.
Yeah. Getting
Well-
all shaggy and stinky.
Caroline, you got a third drink, so do you want to shout that out real fast?
Yeah, did
I
they
did.
bring
You-
that to you, or did you order that?
I
Like-
ordered that.
Okay.
I was
Like,
pretty
man,
quiet
I really
about
like
it.
her.
Gabby is the best.
Yeah. What
We
did
need to
Gabby
reiterate
bring?
that. I got their slow pour Pilsner, which I'm like 95% sure is their Czech Pilsner. But I
think, yeah.
specifically said slow pour
Okay.
when I ordered it because I wanted a slow pour beer.
Okay. Well, Brock, thank you for coming on the podcast. We are going to do one more segment before we close, but just wanted to say thank you again for coming on, talking about your experience as a dad, as a stay-at-home dad, as a board member of the National Stay-at-Home Dad
A
Network.
citizen of Cincinnati.
Yeah, everything.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for inviting me, guys. Honestly, this has been awesome. If anybody's looking for like to connect, like the Cincinnati Dads group, that's all you got to go and look up. So the nice part too, I didn't mention this, but I started up a Discord server, which if you're a gamer, you know what that is. But basically, it's a way to actually communicate with people without having to be on Facebook or anything.
Yeah.
And so I started that up for a lot of dads who are just like, I'm done with Facebook. So yeah, you can find the group on all the social media platforms and just reach out. Like if you're like, hey, I just want to get in the Discord channel, like that's something I send out like individually to people so that it's not just out there flying in the wind. But yeah, I definitely want to get more dads involved. We're getting close to about 1,000 right now.
Sweet.
And you know, it's been great just being able to put it out there, and yeah, hopefully more dads will join.
All
I
right.
hope so.
All right. So this is a very quick segment. This is Joe's Dad Joke of the Week.
Oh, man.
Brock, are you a golfer? By any chance you mentioned disc golf?
Mini
but-
golf,
yeah.
little top golf. That's about as far as it goes for me most times.
Okay. Well, you would appreciate this joke. Why did the golfer bring 2 pairs of pants?
I don't know.
Just in case he got a hole in one.
Oh,
That's a bad one. All right, so that does it for this week's show. Thanks so much for listening. Special shout out to HighGrain Brewing and Silverton for hosting us. Again, make sure to come out and check out these guys. They make phenomenal beer, and oh my goodness, the food is fantastic. I think we are going to eat dinner here.
So many food babies.
Yes. And of course, shout out to Gabby, our hostess.
Our hostess with the mostest.
Yeah.
She has brought me 2 beers since we started this podcast. No questions asked.
Yeah, and make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Craft Parenting Podcast. You can get a hold of us via email, which is craftparentingpodcast@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Make sure to share the show. It's what helps our show grow. If you'd like to send us stuff such as fan mail, craft supplies, sanity, we have a P.O. box.
All this information is available on our website, which is www.craftparentingpodcast.com.
Oh, that's where we post the show notes, plus blog posts about some of the stuff that doesn't make it into the podcast. Celebration! Surprise party? Sports ball?
They're watching something maybe.
No, it's a surprise party, I think.
Okay.
Blog
And-
posts. We write them.
Yes, go to the website. If you want to follow me personally, I am at Craft Parenting Joe on Instagram. I post pictures of craft beer that I drink.
And I am at Caroline Creates Crafts on Instagram and Caroline's Creative Crafts on Facebook. And then Brock, how can people find you?
I am at the Nomad Dad, which is spelled with 2 D's. Or you can find me on TikTok at a Cincy Dad.
Nice.
All right, and thank you so much again for coming on. And with that, I'm Joe.
And I'm Caroline.
And I'm Brock.
See you next time on the Craft Parenting Podcast.
And then we have buttons. So,
Yeah, we're fancy.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine.
where's my favorite button?
West Side, West Side. That's where I started at, man.
Oh, wait, no. Oh, that's the loopy one. That's the one that's not going to stop. You have to just turn it down.
I hit the wrong button.
It's red for stop.